Welcome to Kitco, Randy Smallwood. Thank you very much for making time for us. Can you provide us an update on operations right now with COVID-19 restrictions?
Sure. We've got operations in both Peru and Mexico, and of course, both those countries, mining operations have been asked to suspend operations by the local governments in both Peru and Mexico. And so Antamina, Yelayacu, and Constancia have suspended operations in Peru, and then in Mexico we've got Peñasquito, San Dimas, and Los Filos. I'm talking to Tom Palmer earlier on today, and it sounds like they're making plans to try and move forward. I should say, with the rest of the operations, we've got everything is still moving forward. We are in regular contact with all of our partners to ensure that we've got good, strong policies in place, and a lot of our partners like Vale at Salobo and Sudbury and such, they've really limited extra personnel and extra contractors and stuff like that. They've got good, strong physical distancing policies in place. They're constantly checking and testing people to make sure that the virus doesn't get onto site. I think to date, the only case we've had was one contractor at Antamina that was immediately separated from everyone else, and we haven't had any other cases reported at Antamina. So far, so good on that front. I know Tom Palmer at Newmont was talking. In fact, he talked publicly this morning about the plan to start, restarting operations, and how things are going to have to change in terms of how operations go, and measuring and controlling the risk of COVID-19. So we continue to monitor and stay in touch with our partners. This is our 6th week of working from home, so we've had all sorts of getting quite used to it. I'm scared to say I think I might be a little bit more productive here, but yeah, that's the status right now.
There's been a number of countries that have been allowing mining to go on. There's been other countries that have not been allowing mining to go on. Do you feel that you're making progress with the countries that you can show that mining is an essential service, and actually show that you are actually able to do the COVID-19 restrictions to actually to isolate and make sure that there's no spreading while mining can go on?
Yeah, I mean, I think the key thing here is we're gonna all have to change how we work and how we communicate, how we socialize with people, and how we work beside people to control this risk. And so there's several different ways to put those policies and procedures in place and get people into the habit of the physical distancing, and get people into the habit of, if you don't feel well, back away, don't come to work, stay at home, stay in your bunkhouse, report immediately so you can get tested. And if you show any type of symptoms, make sure you self-isolate. And so the approach of suspending operations, we've seen all the way from Panama, where they didn't suspend operations and had at least one death at Cobre de Panama, to places like Quebec, where they did suspend operations, and now are relaxing those and allowing that to move on. I mean, it was interesting seeing two provinces like Ontario and Quebec side by side, and one deeming mining essential while the other one not. Society, survival is the strongest human instinct, and society is going to find a way to manage our way through this challenge, and limit the risk, and hopefully eventually kill the risk associated to it. But we're going to have to find a way to manage this risk. And I think it's going to come down to just training everyone about physical distancing, about if you're not feeling well, to stay away from work, and to make sure you get tested, and be comfortable with self-isolating if that's the case. I think it's just going to come down to that mentality. So as we show, and as countries that, I think by example, as countries that have been able to maintain operations have shown that they've been able to control the risk, that's only going to provide reinforcement for the countries that have limited operations to feel more comfortable in programs, or in restarting these operations. The key point is making sure that you can show that you've got the proper procedures and policies in place to limit risk.
Last week, you announced an ATM equity program. I believe that was up to $300 million. Can you just tell us what was the initiative behind that, and what was the point of the program?
Yeah, it's ATMs, of course. We've seen quite a few companies take them out. It's actually a relatively competitive source of capital if required. Now, our preference, and we've shown that by example over the last 6.5 years, is to use debt. The debt is incredibly attractively priced. It's very cheap for us. And the other advantage with debt is that it's not permanent. When we use debt to make an acquisition, we eventually take those cash flows, throw it against the debt, and chew it away. And in fact, if we don't make any further acquisitions over the next year, we'll have our debt paid down by the middle of next year. Whereas if we had used equity to fund those acquisitions over the last 6 years, we would have diluted our shareholders to the tune of 14% less value. We would have had 14% more shares issued and outstanding than we do right now. So that is real dilution to our existing shareholders. So the use of debt is very effective for us, and it is our preferred source of capital. But to be honest, on the corporate development front, we see so many opportunities right now that we felt we needed to just make sure we had all the tools available in terms of how we would fund that going forward. So our preference and our intent is to fund any new acquisitions through our existing cash flow and our debt facility, our $2 billion revolver, of which we've got well over $1 billion of capacity on that. But if we're fortunate enough and successful in a couple of these opportunities we're looking at, we may need to tap into that ATM. Without an opportunity set, we do not intend to use the ATM. Dilution to our existing shareholders, which is who we work for, is a 4-letter word for us. We don't want to dilute our shareholders.
I think when we talked in, what was it, I think it was the early fall, you were talking about that we're kind of getting into this phase right now where we had healthy gold prices and there was other means of financing. I assume that opportunities have happened now just because we've had this sudden market drop and there's just so much uncertainty.
Yeah, it was interesting, and you're right. In the fall, we saw a real change, and to be honest, before this pandemic took place, we noticed a real uptick in opportunity, both in the scale and quality of the opportunities out there. And so we've got 2 or 3 opportunities that are in excess of $500 million in value that we're working on right now. We were fortunate in the fact that we got in some site visits before the pandemic, and so these are still auction processes. We're not exclusive by any means, but hopeful that we can move forward with some acquisitions. Without that, I will say that probably one of the hidden benefits for us is the fact that this pandemic is probably going to stress a few balance sheets out there from other companies that are having to deal with the costs associated with managing these issues and some of these suspensions. And anytime there's a stressed balance sheet, that does open up opportunities for us. Our business is really to supply capital to the mining industry, and it's always important to remember that our biggest clientele really comes from the base metal space. And when you look at the base metal miners, that's where we purchase the bulk of our precious metals from. When you look at those base metal miners, there's some challenges in that space right now. So hopefully it will open up some opportunities. We'd love to help some of these operations, help some of these operators work their way through this.
Let's turn to precious metal outlook. Obviously, gold is doing gangbusters right now with political risk and the bankers seeming to overextend themselves. But how is silver looking in this environment?
Silver, I still think it's lagging. I think it's got so much more potential. I mean, we've seen some move up as it's chased up, and to be honest, over the last month, it has slightly outperformed gold on a percentage basis. But we just haven't seen. I mean, the gold-silver ratios we saw at the start of the issues here, we saw silver drop substantially, and we've always known that silver is the high beta precious metal, whereas gold is more about continual persistent direction. Silver just seems to swing, always outperforms in both directions, is the way I like to remind everyone. The fundamentals behind silver, though, are about as good as I've ever seen. The demand, the industrial demand, and it's in applications that truly are important to society. It's high efficiency electronics, and it's antibacterial applications, water purification systems, mobile phones, mobile electronics, anything that where you want high efficiency and low power loss. Solar panels, silver plays a role in that, and the world is getting more and more concerned about efficiencies. We want the best performance for the least amount of product and of material, and so silver is going to play a role in that. but we just haven't seen that wake up. And my own theory is that, to be honest, I don't think, I think we really are starting to now see a retail wake up into the gold space. But to be honest, I think a lot of what's driven gold is central bank buying. There has been substantive central bank buying towards the de-dollarization process around the world. And I think that's been probably the biggest contributor to gold prices climbing as they have. Now we're starting to wake up the retail market. I can tell you the number of meetings I've had in the last couple of days associated to the Zurich Gold Forum, where we're dealing with finally what it appears to be a serious intent to make gold. As we say, 10% of every portfolio in the world, there should be some gold in there, and there's definitely a higher level of interest in the retail side. Here's what usually happens: gold will start moving on that retail side first, and then we'll see silver come in later. So I am more bullish on silver. I think silver will outperform, but I think it's going to require some patience while gold continues to build its momentum.
You announced a $5 million community support fund around COVID-19. How do you go about identifying a need? How do you go about coordinating with also the other miners that are also providing help in this time?
Well, this fund is incremental on top of our already very robust community support that we have with agreements with a lot of our partnerships. And so it's a $5 million US fund, of which about 80% of that will go to the partner operations. And because we're already active at these sites with our partners, we already have a pretty good feeling about places that it's needed. And we've stayed on top of this. We knew this was coming. We started the process to put this fund together about a week ago, and we started reaching out to our partners, and we could see a definite need for it. I can tell you that it doesn't take much to look around and realize that even in our own communities, there's a definite need for it. And that's why we've got a healthy portion of this, about $1 million US going towards the charities and the frontline workers that need it around our own communities here in Vancouver and in our offices. And so there's no doubt in terms of identifying the need to make it the most effective. Our experience in the past has been that we work with our partners, obviously, and match funding. However, there's just certain areas that are going to need some support, food banks, etc. Anyone that's going through socioeconomic issues, when we see mines being suspended and challenges with lack of work in areas, it's something where support is going to be required. We've always on a relative basis, I mean, there's no doubt everyone on this planet is being impacted by this pandemic. But on a relative basis, our company and our team and our staff are, we're relatively fortunate. We're comfortable, we're confident where we are. We've got a commodity that's growing in increasing demand. And I think it's time to share some of that good fortune. And really, so that's what it comes down to is we just felt there's a strong need out there for it. It's hopefully the first, hopefully a one and only. I hope we don't have to add to this as time goes on, and I hope that we get through that, but it's definitely something that's needed.
Smallwood, thank you very much for speaking with Kitco.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.